Hello, nerds! Nerds for Humanity, super quick live stream summarizing my top takeaways after watching the Joe Biden NATO press conference. Was this a decisive win for him, such that all calls for his stepping down will now be put to the side? Or was it another debacle such that the dam will finally break and hundreds of elected Democrats will ask for him to step down and pass the torch? Unfortunately, I've got news for you. The answer is neither. Overall, I would have given him like maybe a B minus. We'll show some clips in a second. He had some very clear challenges. The biggest one being the first question he got. He has a thing of mixing up names, and you know, as someone who's terrible with names since I was little, like, I don't really blame him too much. But you know, when you're president of the United States, it's really helpful to get the names right, especially if you're talking about your own vice president. So we'll go into some clips, and then we'll talk about kind of the state of the race. Maybe we'll look at some betting odds, maybe some search terms, kind of old school nerds for Yang style. But before we jump into some clips, I see some members in the live chat. So hey, Jeremy. Hey, Mickey, and hey, Jackalego. So all of you who are channel members, you're keeping this content going. It's now, I think we're at over 4 years old, this channel. So super cool to see everybody. All right, let's look at some. Oh, Jackalego, I am going to the Yang Gang reunion. I plan to. I think it is Saturday. So in, I think, San Mateo. So if anybody from the Yang Gang who's also a Nerds for Humanity subscriber, if you're going to be at the event, make sure you look out for me. I'd love to get a selfie with you. All right. You'll have to remind me of your name because, as I mentioned, I'm terrible with names. Okay, so let's get into probably the first answer, and then we'll jump around a little bit, and then I'll give you my general thoughts. And then finally, we'll look at search terms, betting odds, maybe recent polls, and then wrap it up because I need to make dinner for the nerdlings who are watching. Oh, Miami Poppin is my MAGA brother, living the very evangelical Christian MAGA lifestyle, clearly. And Mickey, yes, I will try and post pics. Anyone who sees me at the Yang event, make sure you find me so that I can get a selfie with you, and then I'll put a whole collage of them up. Maybe I'll share it in my next live stream. Okay, let's go into the actual press conference.
Rise partnerships.
Okay, so he started with a pretty decent speech on the teleprompter. And by the way, Miami Poppin', if you want to come join this live stream and do a quick, hey, here's an update from your MAGA perspective, I'm going to post a link to the live stream in our family on WhatsApp, Peter. So if you want to join, just use that anytime, and I'll be notified when you get into the backstage. Okay, so now that's now that we've gotten that out of the way. Okay, so Biden did a pretty good job, like he did earlier this week in his opening statements. I think we can now establish that if the job of being president is entirely reading off a teleprompter, like he's got that nailed. Oh, Sue's watching at 2:35 a.m. in Portugal. Yes. Good night, Sue. Get some rest, and see you on replay. Okay, so teleprompter Biden, not a problem. He crushes it. It's kind of like me with GPS. Like, I can drive no problem with GPS, but if you take away my GPS, my sense of direction is so poopy stinky that, you know, I would be a very bad Uber driver or driver, like professional driver. That would not be my thing. And so while Biden's really good at teleprompter, he's really bad at talking extemporaneously and accessing important facts and key pieces of information rapidly. And you could argue that that's kind of important for the job of president. Now, there are some people who would say, well, you know, what's important is that he has good judgment, he surrounds himself with brilliant people. I might have been spoiled. You know, I'm used to like Obama, Romney type kind of caliber leaders, and they were both pretty good at making logical arguments and supporting those arguments with facts and details and being able to deconstruct opposing arguments and to do it really convincingly. And we know that without a teleprompter, that is not Joe Biden. And I'll give you an example where he had to answer a question, the first question of the entire press conference, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Political Reuters, Jeff Mason.
Mr. President, your political future has hung over the NATO summit a little bit this week. Speaker Pelosi made a point of suggesting that your decision on whether to stay in the race was still open. George Clooney and a handful of lawmakers have called on you to step aside. Reuters is reporting tonight that UAW leadership is concerned about your ability to win.
UAW just endorsed me, but go ahead.
Thank you. My question for you is, how are you incorporating these developments into your decision to stay? And separately, what concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, so I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there.
Okay, so let's start there. The current vice president is obviously not Donald J. Trump. Maybe there are some MAGA people that think that somehow Trump is still running the country, but the current vice president is Kamala Harris, and Trump is actually Biden's opponent. Now, if this were like any other president, you'd be like, oh, haha, he got Trump and Harris mixed up. However, earlier today, he also got Zelensky and Putin mixed up. And then we had references, I think a year or two ago, to Francois Mitterrand, Helmut Kohl, like all kinds of figures who are no longer in power, some who are no longer alive. So that was not a great start. Now, in fairness to Biden, that was probably the worst moment for him. The rest of the press conference, like, he does fine. He does okay. We can jump to another example. But, I don't think there was, that one was pretty bad. Maybe the other one wasn't necessarily a, gaffe or a misstatement. But it was an interesting question from Asma Khalid from NPR. By the way, as a hardcore NPR listener, it's so cool to see Asma and see what, video, because you always just hear the voice. She asked a great question, and let me just jump to her if I can find it. It was before this one. I think so. Hold on. This is why maybe I should have had these clips ready to go, nerds. But you know what? This was a little bit of a... extemporaneous stream here. If I can't find her quickly, come on, Asma, where are you? I'll find someone else.
Is that in public, they're not
Ending in Europe. I just asked between China.
to get companies to come for. The history of every inch of that, not every inch. Look at the numbers. Anyway, Haley was the next one. I'll do. Haley Bull, Scripps.
Oh, no, I think it was before Haley.
A lot of
Bridge candidacy.
Oh, yeah, here it comes. I found it, guys. Thank you for your patience. Give me one second.
I'm
I want to go to the beginning of it. But we're in the right section now.
history of cooperative. Number one. Getting
What transition?
There she is. All right. All right, here we go.
Thank you, Mr. President. Asma Khalid with NPR. I have two questions. Earlier, you spoke about the ceasefire plan between Israel and Hamas. We're now looking at 10 months of war, and I'm curious if there's anything that you feel personally you wish you would have done differently over the course of the war. And then secondly, if I may, I wanted to ask you about your presidential campaign. I remember covering your campaign in 2020, and there was a moment where you referred to yourself as a, quote, bridge candidacy, a transition to a younger generation of leaders. I want to understand what changed.
two things. Let's go back to when you talked about would I have changed anything that's happening.
Okay, so then he gives his answer on Gaza, which I actually thought was a decent answer. He kind of was a little bit more balanced around his previous kind of unconditional support of whatever Netanyahu wanted to do. And then he gets into the, hey, we thought you were going to be a transitional candidate, like what changed? And let's go into that answer. So we're going to
With it,
fast forward past his answer about Gaza,
almost
which,
without
you know, in
what
fairness
he
to
did,
him, was pretty
he's
good.
successful. But that's why after bin Laden, they took the weapons that used at her, it sent things on the West Bank. I have other people here too.
It changed. Young in 2020, you bridge candidacy in 2020. You referred to yourself as being a bridge candidate for a younger, fresher generation of Democratic leaders, and I wanted to know what changed.
What changed was the gravity of the situation I inherited in terms of the economy, our foreign policy, and domestic division. And I think, I won't put words in anybody's mouth. Most presidential historians give me credit for having accomplished more than most any president since Johnson and maybe before that to get major pieces of legislation passed. And what I realized was my long time in the Senate had equipped me to have the wisdom to know how to deal with the Congress, to get things done. We got more major legislation passed that no one thought would happen. And I want to finish it, to get that finished. If tomorrow, if we had a circumstance where there was a lineup and I hadn't inherited what I did and we just moved things along, anyway, it's going to change.
Last question.
Okay, so let's break that one down. Mickey thinks that was a word salad. I think what he was saying is that, when I said I was going to be transitional, I thought that the world would be fine and things wouldn't be that challenging, and then it would make sense to just step aside. But because, the world is so complicated and there's so much more important work to do, like I have to finish it. So my response on that would be two things. Number one is the argument that nobody has done more than you in your first term is a good one, except people that are asking for Biden to pass the torch are, for the most part, not saying that he didn't do some good things during his first 4 years. The biggest question that a lot of people have is he able to do a good job for the next 4 years? So bear with me for a second here. Because this is really, I think, the crux of the argument. If you don't think that Joe Biden will be able to serve in his capacity as president of the United States for 4 additional years, then why is he at the top of the ticket now? Now, some people are saying, well, don't worry. Yes, he's old, but once he's sworn in, if during the second term it's obvious, I would argue it already is obvious, but it becomes even more egregious, then that's what a vice president is for, and Kamala will step in. 2 concerns I would offer on that argument. Number one is, are we saying that we are knowingly going to re-elect a president that we don't think can finish a second term? Like, that seems very weird to me. If that's the case, if you don't think that they can finish finish their second term, then they shouldn't be on the ticket at all. Like, if the whole plan is for Kamala to take over, then let's let Kamala be at the top of the ticket. Like, so that's point one. It doesn't seem, if democracy is on the line, then put the person that you expect to be president for the majority of the second term at the top of the ticket. I'm not even sure he would make it past the first year. Second point, it's clear it's very difficult to get him to step aside now. So why are we so confident that he would step aside if his capabilities diminish halfway through the second term? It is often the case that the person with the diminished capacity is least able to detect that they have that diminished capacity. And if Jill Biden and his advisors are telling him, hey, you just had a bad night, you're still going to win it, it's a toss-up, don't worry about the polls, don't worry about all these elected Democrats publicly asking you to stand aside, don't worry that Nancy Pelosi is saying you need to really think about this again and again and again, then why would we trust them in a year or two? So the whole like, hey, everything's fine, we'll elect Biden and then swap him out after he's sworn in, like, that just seems super undemocratic. That you just put the person that you think should be president for the majority of the second term at the top of the freaking ticket. Now, the second thing I've heard is, well, we can't do that. Why not? We can't remove him from the ticket. The reason is that we don't think Kamala can win. Okay. So if you don't think Kamala can win on her own in a national election, why are you okay with her becoming president, a few hours after Biden is sworn in or a year after Biden is sworn in? Like, then you're knowingly electing a vice president who you believe would not be able to garner 270 electoral votes on their own. And then they kind of become president because the top of the ticket resigned? Like, that just seems... Then she shouldn't be on the ticket if she can't win. So this whole like, hey, this ticket is good, we're riding with Biden, I'm with Joe, like, I don't buy it. My response is if Joe can't serve through 2028, Joe should not be on the ticket at all. And then if Kamala can't win on the top of the ticket, then she shouldn't be on the top of the ticket. That's it. Now, those are my thoughts, but I'm gonna jump into the comments, and then I think we'll look at betting odds and recent polls, because at the very end, maybe we'll play one more answer. At the very end, I think Joe Biden was saying like, "Hey, the polls are looking pretty good," or something that seemed very disconnected from reality. Let's see here.
Haley Bull.
We're gonna go.
Chosen.
85%.
I don't know.
Lower. It's a little bit of wisdom if you pay attention. And so the point I'm making is, I think it's important that if the neurologist tells me he thinks I need another exam, and by the way, I've laid every bit of the record out. Hadn't hidden a thing. You ought to ask Trump for his, okay? I laid it all out. And every single day I'm surrounded by good docs. If they think there's a problem, I promise you, or even if they don't think it's a problem, they think I should have a neurological exam again, I'll do it. No one's suggesting that to me now. And I'll ask you another question. No matter what I did, no one's going to be satisfied. Did you have 7 docs?
Okay, on that part, I kind of agree with him, and I disagree with him. I disagree with him that nobody's asking him to have a neurological exam. Like, where is he getting his information? The whole country, or half the country, is freaking out that he's not ready, and they're concerned about his abilities. So this argument that, hey, nobody's asked me to take an exam, like they literally just asked you in a press conference, and they keep asking you for a reason. You know, Stephanopoulos asked you in the interview as well. So the whole like nobody's asking me is a bunch of malarkey. Now, I do agree with him that whatever the results are, people might not be satisfied. Frankly, people like me. And why? Because we can see. We have eyes and ears, and we are sentient beings. And there's almost nothing he can do to change the concerns that people have. Because frankly, they've had these concerns. Even in 2020, they had some concerns about his age. But we kind of got over it because we said he was a transitional president. Now, they've had concerns about his age since the primaries, frankly. And because of that debate performance, because of the Stephanopoulos interview, even because of this press conference, it's like nobody's going to be convinced now that he's somehow younger. It's not something that you can really change. Like when Father Time comes for you, like you just go with him. And so that was his answer about the neurological exam. And let's see if we can get to his polling discussion.
Did you have 2? Who'd you have? Did you do this? How many times did you? Haley Bull, Scripps.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said you're making decisions on a day-to-day basis when it comes to support for Ukraine. Does that mean you have not closed the door on further considering lifting restrictions for U.S.-made weapons inside Russia? And if I may, your convention is coming up where your delegates are pledged to make you the official nominee. If they have second thoughts, are they free to vote their conscience?
Obviously, they're free to do whatever they want, but I got overwhelming support. Overwhelming support. I won. I forget how many votes I won in the primary. Overwhelming.
Okay. You guys know I just got triggered since many of you know that I worked for Dean Phillips in New Hampshire on the ground for the First in the Nation primary. And a couple things. One is Joe Biden did 0 primary debates. The only person who did as few primary debates as Joe Biden this cycle was Donald Trump. So he's not in great company. Number 2, he knows that primarying a sitting president is close to political suicide. There were plenty of people who would have ran had Joe decided not to run. But once the sitting president runs, you have tradition, you have name awareness, you have access to money, all of these advantages that come with being an incumbent president. So this notion that like, oh, the people clearly love me and the whole party was so excited for me. Look, I got all these primary wins in South Carolina. Over 90% voted for me. It's like, well, they voted for you because you were up against a congressman from Minnesota that nobody knew about, who had run out of money by the time South Carolina had come along, that was not getting any press coverage, and you agreed to 0 debates with any of your primary competitors. So, forgive me if I'm a little skeptical of this whole argument that, oh, we had a primary, like the will of the people has been reflected. Like nobody wanted Joe to run again, and people were falling into line and voting for the name they recognized, and that's that.
And so tomorrow, if all of a sudden I show up at the convention, everybody says, we want somebody else, that's the democratic process. It's not going to happen.
Even if that means they vote for someone else?
Sure. Look, I'll end this with this. I served in the Senate a long time. I understand the impetus of candidates running for local office and whether they think the topic can help them or not. In my state of Delaware, which was a very, at least a purple, it was a red state when I started, in terms of where you now talk red and blue. I don't recall most of the Democratic presidents winning my state when I was a candidate. The truth of the matter is I understand the self-interest of a candidate. If they think that, running with Biden at the top is going to hurt them, then they're going to run away. I get it. But so far, go and look at the poll.
Okay, so let's just be clear here. He is acknowledging that a lot of the elected Democrats in Congress who are publicly saying that Joe should step aside are saying that because they're worried about him dragging the whole ballot down and all the down ballot candidates being affected. Because the biggest risk is that people who otherwise would have voted Democrat stay home because they're like, wow, both of these jokers, don't like either of them. I'm just going to stay on the couch. And if they stay on the couch, those people could have voted in your congressional district. And if you're in a swing district and you're a Democrat, you're screwed. So he's basically saying, hey, look, I've been in Congress a long time. Whenever the president's weak and is going to not help the people down ballot, those down ballot people are unhappy. And that is true. But that's not their fault. That's your fault. You didn't see a lot of people telling Obama to drop out, worried that he wasn't going to be able to turn out voters.
Polling data in their states. Look at the in-depth, and by the way, I think you'd all acknowledge, and you're all experts. I'm not being solicitous about the president. You're experts on this stuff. How accurate does anybody think the polls are these days? I can give you a series of polls where you have likely voters, me versus Trump, where I win all the time. When the unlikely voters...
What? Did he just say he has polls where he wins all the time? Let me...
think you'd all acknowledge, and you're all experts. I'm not being solicitous about the president. You're experts on this stuff. How accurate does anybody think the polls are these days? I can give you a series of polls where you have likely voters, me versus Trump, where I win all the time. When the unlikely voters vote, he wins sometimes. So bottom line is all the polling data right now, which I think is premature because the campaign really hasn't even started. I mean, it hasn't started in earnest yet. Most of the time, it doesn't start till after September, after Labor Day. So a lot can happen. But
Okay. Couple things. What do you mean the campaign hasn't started? I think when 40 million people tune in to your debate performance, and there's record amounts of people expressing concern about a presumptive nominee in July, that means people are for sure paying attention. Not to mention, the alternative right now is a known insurrectionist liable for sexual assault and convicted felon. So I think people are paying attention, and I think they know who Joe Biden and Donald Trump are. It's not like, well, they need to get to know me more. They know. Now, he said, hey, you look at all these polls, like I'm leading by likely voters. I think this is an interesting tell to the extent that he may not be receiving the full information. Now, you know, he might be receiving polling data from his inner circle that is somehow giving him the wrong impression. So if Joe Biden is bored and on the toilet at the moment, flipping through YouTube, and he stumbles upon this live stream, I would like to introduce Joe Biden to 538.com. And this provides you with access to major polls from a whole variety of sources. And you can see the sponsor, the pollster, the net result. We'll do that right now. And we'll see where Biden is leading Trump amongst likely voters. So SoCal Research did a poll of 1,000 people, July 6th to 11th in Old Virginia. And Biden, in fairness, Biden is ahead of Trump by 3 points in Virginia. Now, the question is Virginia a swing state? Swing state. Survey says it is considered a swing state and a battleground state. Okay, in fairness, I stand corrected. So there is one, Virginia. Now, in a national poll, YouGov and The Economist, Trump versus Harris, Trump up 4. Trump versus Biden, Trump up 3. And then Washington Post Ipsos has Harris slightly ahead by 2, 49-47. Trump versus Biden, Trump up by 1. And then Biden, Trump even in the same poll. That's interesting. Up by 1 and even. Oh, I guess that when you include Kennedy, West, and Stein, Trump wins. And when it's just a head-to-head, it's even. So far, in fairness to Biden, he is ahead in Virginia by 3 points. He loses to Trump nationally by 4, by 3, by 1. And then Redfield poll, Trump wins by 7 over Harris and by 1 over Biden. Okay, now you see that, guys, this is why people are a little bit in a pickle, because you've got Harris not doing that well when over Trump compared to Biden. So even Biden, with all of his issues, only, quote unquote, only, loses to Trump by 1 point, whereas Harris would lose to him by 7. Kennedy would pick up 8. And then in a Harris versus Trump. In a Biden versus Trump, Kennedy would have 6. So basically, some Biden people would move to Kennedy, according to this poll, if you swapped Biden for Harris. Now then, in fairness to Biden, Shapiro loses to Trump by 8, Warren by 10, Gore by 5, Hillary loses to Trump by 7. They all lose to Trump. Now, in fairness, I think this is where you can't really compare how a sitting president is doing versus Trump and a potential theoretical candidacy, because some of the people who answered this might not even know who the hell Josh Shapiro is, or they may not, haven't seen Pete Buttigieg or Whitmer, Gretchen Whitmer, make a speech. So that is an issue. And then you have July 7th, we have polls where Trump beats Biden by 2. Morning Consult, according to Pew, Trump beats Biden by 3 or by 4. Wow, look at that. Kennedy at 15 in the Pew poll. Interesting. And then here's some July 6 polls showing Trump beating Biden by 1, Harris beating Trump by 1. So I don't think anybody looking at those numbers would say that, oh, Biden's cleaning up. There's no problem. The polls are all in favor of Biden. In fact, here's what I would say to you. 2 things. 1, how is it that Donald J. Trump is beating the sitting president of the United States, despite the fact that that individual in Florida is a convicted felon, known insurrectionist, found liable of sexual assault, lies all the time, has a revolving door cabinet, his son-in-law does multi-billion-dollar deals with the Saudis. Like, how is this person beating the sitting president? So that's point 1. Like, you've got to be a pretty bad candidate to poll like that versus Trump. Now, point 2 is we are now comparing 2 active candidates, Biden and Trump, to these theoretical challengers like Whitmer, Shapiro, even Harris. And if they're already within 1 or 2 points of what Biden is doing, or even 3 or 4 points, and they haven't even launched a campaign and formally introduced themselves, then I would argue like this is very encouraging for the pass the torch crowd, because it's like, wow, if the bench is already getting first downs, and they're not even warmed up yet, this is a good sign. That would be my point. Okay, so next we're going to look at gamblers' betting odds and search trends. And we will then go to some chats and call out our channel supporters. So let's jump to give a quick shout out to our channel supporters. So if you like this content, there are two things you can do. Best thing is to become a member, and you'll do two things. Do a number of things. One is it helps pay for streaming software, thumbnail software, podcast hosting, and I'm thinking about upgrading the camera so you have even like a higher quality view of the fish. And just like higher production quality. The second thing is I'm thinking about advertising the podcast on other podcasts. And the reason is that would give us a bigger audience, and bigger audience allows us to get bigger guests. Like, oh my God, how cool would it be to have like Gretchen Whitmer or Josh Shapiro on, or Kamala Harris? Like, that would be awesome. So who are these channel members? So that's the number one way you can help, is join as a member. The second best way is just hit the like button and share it, because the algorithm will reward us for that. So thanks. Who's our biggest supporter? Senior Vice President Soldier One, a supporter of the channel for 50 months, probably a viewer for longer than that. Kristen Slevin has supported the channel for 54 months. She's a vice president. And then so is Bike for 44 months. And Emily Quinn, who wasn't a vice president, was a different level under, and then upgraded herself. So if you're currently a channel member and you want to upgrade, that's totally doable. Then we have our hardcore: Gene, David, DK, Jackalego, Mr. History, Mona, Vaughn, Yang, Dean, Galessa, Jay Parent, Dana, Jason, Daniel, Jeremy, Mickey, Yoda, Jackson, Unkiu. And then for $1.99, you could become a verified nerd, and your name will appear as I scroll down on pretty much every live stream. So thank you to all of you verified nerds. You guys are awesome and beautiful people. So there you are. All right. Got it. So now we're going to go into the live chat and call out some chats, and then we're going to look at betting odds and internet search terms. Okay. Yes, Lou. It would have been good to have Peter on. He did reply to my WhatsApp. And here's what he said. I'm sure he doesn't mind me saying this. He says, "Bro, I'm too tired." And he spelled two, TWO. Was playing until 5 a.m. with two hotties. Well, you can tell that the brothers have very different world experiences. I was up not till 2 a.m., doing a little bit of work and doing some analysis of public policy data. And the MAGA guy was in Miami Beach doing what he does. Okay, let's see some other comments. Lou is saying, hey, the name mix-up is very similar to Trump referring to Haley as Pelosi. That is true. It is common for, as people get older, they do mix names up. I would say with Trump, he mixes things up in less obvious ways. And then the second thing is, because Trump has such a kind of hyperbolic style, people just are like, oh, that's just Trump. But when Biden does it, it's like, oh, homeboy's not all there. It's not fair, but, life sometimes isn't fair. Let's see. Brandon saying, hey, Biden claiming he hadn't seen a poll saying he couldn't win is a little alarming. Yeah, I think and I've said this on Twitter, where my belief is that there's some perverse incentives here where his advisors have every incentive for him to continue running, even if he, let's say, only has a 30% chance of winning, because that's a 30% chance that they can stay in one of the most powerful jobs on the planet. And if he doesn't continue and he ends his campaign, there's a very large percentage chance that they will be relegated to the back bench. Because let's say Biden steps aside and makes room for either Harris or Shapiro or Whitmer, it's not like Whitmer's going to be like, oh yeah, all the Biden advisors, you can now work for me. Like those Biden advisors, like they kind of get kicked to the curb. So as a result, you could argue it's rarely the case that the inner circle will tell the candidate, hey, it's time to wrap things up. Unless it's like, I mean, I think if you get to that point, then, you know, it's pretty bad. Let's see. Brandon saying, stubborn individuals generally don't get... Yeah, that's true. GPT Live is saying, maybe we're voting for the combo. Biden plus Kamala, 2 years each ticket. Oh my God. I suppose so. Number one, I'm ready for a fresh face now. I don't want to wait 2 years. I don't want 2 more years of Biden, and I don't want any more years of Trump. And number two is like, well, then if Kamala's going to be the replacement, then let Kamala run, you know? Let her earn it. And I think she would be a stronger candidate if she were forced to compete in a blitz primary and be on the debate stage, answer hard questions. Here's the biggest, not the biggest, but one of the many challenges with Kamala is that she inherits all the baggage of the Biden administration. Now, I know Joe is like, hey, I've had the most successful term ever. Here's the reality. If you ask the average voter in a swing state, they will probably talk about maybe 3 or 4 things. They'll talk about, and this is based on the polling that I've seen, they'll talk about inflation, how everything is more expensive. They'll talk about the border, how they feel like it's not under control. They'll talk about abortion rights, which would be in favor of Biden and Harris. And then they'll probably talk about foreign policy, about how they feel like things are pretty messy right now. And many of them will be unhappy about Gaza or Ukraine. But either way, I would argue Harris, if she were the top of the ticket, would have a difficult time defending the Biden administration's record on immigration. She would have a difficult time convincing people that Bidenomics is good for the average voter. You could find 17 Nobel laureates that would say it, but unfortunately, 17 Nobel laureates don't choose who gets to be president. And most of those swing voters don't give a crap what those 17 Nobel laureates think. They're just looking at their grocery bill and the bill at the pump or their rent or interest rates. And they're just saying like, hey, things were better in 2019 than they are today. So the challenge that Biden, now I'm just doing a Biden. The challenge that Harris would have is that she would have to defend all of the bad stuff that happened during Biden's watch. And then she would try and take credit for what? Maybe Inflation Reduction Act, maybe CHIPS Act, maybe NATO, and most swing voters their eyes would glaze over. They would be like, what? I don't give a crap about the CHIPS Act or Inflation Reduction Act. Like, that doesn't seem to be working in their opinion. So that's part of the challenge with Harris, and one of the appeals of a Whitmer or a Shapiro where they could actually be Democrats, run against Trump, and they don't have to take full responsibility for what happened under Biden and Harris, right? They could be like, hey, you know, I've been a governor. This is what I'm going to do. People should give credit to President Biden for all his accomplishments. I'm going to build on that and do these other things. Like, they don't have to slam Biden, but just by the fact that they weren't in the White House during the Biden's first term allows them to kind of bring a fresh look, a fresh perspective, a fresh record to the table. Okay. GPT Live is saying, he said to Stephanopoulos he never had an exam because his doctor said he didn't. Now he's saying he had it. I would agree with you. The answers have been kind of muddled on that one. Lou is saying the blue... I didn't know there were... I see what you mean about the blue MAGA. They think Biden... Yeah, so he won delegates pretty much unopposed. Are you telling me that Newsom and Whitmer and Shapiro, their names were on the ballot? Pritzker? No, they weren't. So it was Biden or Phillips, and nobody knew who the hell Phillips was. So that's not democratic. And by the way, Biden never sat for one debate with Phillips. So yeah, there is a strong loyalty for Biden, and I respect it in a weird way, but I think that all of these people were the same people that told us, just simmer down. Once you see the State of the Union, like, he's going to be amazing. And we saw literally the worst presidential debate in modern history. Like, can you think of a time where in a presidential debate someone had a worse showing? I can't think of one in modern history. I mean, maybe if you go back to like the founding fathers or something. Nicolo says Trump is cozying up. Yeah, the Trumpers, they love the Hungarian dude Viktor Orban, and Trump is looking pretty old. He's just not as old as Biden, which is another reason why a Shapiro, Whitmer Harris combo would look so different than Trump Burgum, because then suddenly Trump's the old guy. All right, let's see. Interesting. Jeremy says Biden needs to release. Yeah, if all of his internal polls is such a toss up and he's doing well, like, I would love to see those numbers, because it is just not a encouraging thing from all of the public polls that we've seen. And again, let's just take a look at those numbers. There's even I think there's a chart. Here is this is a average. Basically, they were pretty much tied, let's say, mid-June. And then Trump started pulling away at the end of June. When was POTUS debate? So that was June 27th, yeah. So on June 26th, they were almost tied, 41 to 40.9. And then June 27th, 41.1 to 40.9. June 28th, 41.3 to 40. Then 41.5 to 40. Then 41.7 to 40. Then 41.8 to 40. Then 42.1 to 39. And then we fast forward to now, 42 to 40. So, I mean, Trump has been ahead of Biden pretty much since April of, well, actually, even if we go all the way back to March, he's been ahead. So this idea that, all my polls I'm ahead, I don't buy that. But now you could say, hey, let's look at swing states. So we'll look at Wisconsin. Trump is currently ahead in Wisconsin, 43 to 42. What about Pennsylvania? Trump is ahead 44 to 43. What about Michigan? Trump is ahead ever so slightly, 42 to 41. Let's see. What are POTUS swing states? Oh, did we look at Georgia? Let's look at Georgia. Georgia. Woo! Trump is ahead 44 to 39, and bro has been ahead pretty consistently, up by 5. Georgia is down for Biden. Did we look at Nevada? Very large Latino population. Should be demographically good for Biden. Biden is down in Nevada. Trump 43, Biden 38. What about Arizona? A lot of suburban voters there. 44 to 39. So in literally every swing state, either Trump is ahead or there's like one or two where they're tied. So this is no bueno. I don't know what internal polls he's looking at, but if you look at 538, which averages dozens and dozens of polls, this is no good. Okay, now we're going to look at betting odds, and then we'll wrap. Let's see, election betting odds. Oh, that's pretty bad looking. I don't know if I want to show it to you guys. Just kidding. The data is the data. All right. What are the based on gamblers putting money where their mouth is? Donald Trump has a 58.9% of becoming the next president of the United States, followed by Kamala Harris. And then Biden has a 12% chance. Then you got Newsom, Michelle Obama, RFK, and Hillary Clinton. Jesus. And this is the chart. I mean, basically, you guys all can see this was a bad showing for, let's look at the maximum. Basically, it used to be, there was a time where Biden was ahead of Trump, probably around the convictions. And then Trump started pulling away. And then you see this, Biden went from a 46% chance to a freaking, where's the blue boy? 9.8% chance. God, this is garbage. So that's election betting odds. We'll look at predicted. This is another betting site. Yeah, this is no bueno, guys. 60% chance Trump, 22% Kamala, 19% Biden. And then last thing we'll do is we'll look at some search trends and see if that tells us anything about what people are looking for. Joe Biden. Okay. So this notion that, oh, nobody cares about this election. There was massive search activity for Joe Biden. Starting, let's go back here. Yeah, basically, ever since that debate, interest in searching for Joe Biden has gone up by, I mean, initially it spiked up to good 7 to 8 times what it was before. And then now it's kind of stabilizing at double the number of searches than in June. And then, of course, recently with the press conference went up. What are people searching for? They are searching for Biden ABC interview, Biden medical emergency, Biden debate, Biden interview, Biden medical emergency, Biden debate, Biden cannabis, when is the debate, George Stephanopoulos. So people are definitely interested. And let's see about Donald Trump. They're searching for Trump as well. This is probably after his conviction. What are they searching for? Trump Biden debate time, Dr. Phil Trump interview, Trump unified Reich? That's weird. When is the Trump debate? Trump mistrial, Trump sentencing, Trump Bronx rally, Trump Reich. All right, so let's summarize this by how crap, absolute crap, our options are in the greatest democracy on planet Earth and in the history of man has somehow produced these two embarrassing, flawed, geriatric candidates. Why? Because this whole two-party duopoly that's run by big donors, party insiders, and rewards people who, you know, create a lot of drama. It's not working, guys. It's totally not working. We need more competition, more accessibility, and if this were a private industry, Secretary, who is it? Khan? Who's the FTC? Lena Khan, if she were evaluating the presidential race or how politics works, she would say this industry is anti-competitive. It would appear that these two parties are colluding. Like, let's call a spade here. They excluded anybody else from that first debate. Both Trump and Biden. Neither of them said, hey, shouldn't we have RFK Jr. here? Shouldn't we have Jill Stein here? Shouldn't we have Chase Oliver here? Like, none of them did that. And the reason is, you know, it's a Coke Pepsi world. And those two parties enjoy this little battle they have, and they win half the time with each other. And I am tired of that crap. Especially when the results are these two weak-ass candidates. I apologize for using colorful language, but that's what they are. They are weak, and they are unimpressive, and they are mid, okay? Both of them. You got Trump, who's mid on morals, mid on character, mid on ability to learn, mid on ability to compromise, mid on ability to unify. And then you've got Biden, who's mid on the ability to communicate, mid on the ability to exercise great judgment, mid on the ability to put aside his own personal ambitions and insecurities in the interest of the country. They both suck. And there is a chance for the Democratic Party to give us someone to vote for versus someone that's like a placeholder for us voting against the other party. I would want to vote for. You know, I don't love Kamala Harris. I thought she did really badly in the 2020 primaries. Wasn't impressed by the fact that she couldn't even make it to Iowa. I mean, Andrew Yang made it to New Hampshire. So, like, what's going on, Kamala? At any rate, like, she's got plenty of flaws, but I actually think she would do better than Joe Biden as a candidate and for sure as a president. Number two, imagine if you had two governors, people who've actually accomplished things, have balanced the budget, who've been accountable. And what if those governors were from critical swing states? What if they were from Michigan and Pennsylvania? Or another one, people keep talking about Andy Beshear, or is it Beshear? I think so. Governor of Kentucky. Okay? What's his story? Well, for one thing, homeboy, let's see. Go to the Wikipedia page. Where's the fuck? Excuse me. Where's the bio? Oh, he's 46 years old. Incredible. My goodness. Let's look at Andy Beshear. I don't even. We're gonna unbox this gentleman together. Okay. Andy Beshear, born in Louisville, Kentucky. Studied anthro at Vanderbilt. Graduated with honors. Then he got a law degree from UVA. Was an attorney. Natural gas developer. Not my favorite. But let's see. It looks like he won, obviously. And he called on Republicans who had the supermajority to reach across the aisle. Actually, he's, I guess, okay. I'm not blown away by what has he accomplished? But he would still be better than Biden. I don't think I prefer him over Shapiro or Whitmer. I think I would still go with Shapiro and Whitmer. But like I was saying, imagine if you had a ticket with both members of the ticket from two must-win swing states. That would be Whitmer from Michigan, Shapiro from Pennsylvania. You don't win Michigan and Pennsylvania, I don't think there's many paths for Trump to win the presidency if he loses Michigan and Pennsylvania. In fact, let me see if there's a answer for that. Hold on. We're gonna do a little. If Trump lost Michigan and Pennsylvania in the 2024 POTUS election, are there viable paths to winning the White House? All right, ChatGPT. Let's just share the screen. We'll see what AI can answer for us. Okay. Let's assume the states were won by the Democrats in 2020 remain with the Democrats, yes. Without Michigan and Pennsylvania, Trump would need to find 36 electoral votes elsewhere. Key electoral votes could be Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada. So he would need to win Wisconsin, Arizona, and Georgia, which he lost in 2020. If he won all three, that would potentially compensate for the loss of Michigan and Pennsylvania. Okay. So he would have to kind of run the table, let's say, with the other swing states. Now, that analysis is kind of interesting because what if Biden loses one of Michigan and Pennsylvania? Then it makes it even easier for Trump to repeat what he did in 2016. So I'll just wrap with one thing that I would encourage you all to do is call your congressional representative. I did over the weekend, and I let my congressman know that I wanted her to make it very clear that Joe Biden should not run again. And if all of us flood our congressional representatives' offices with voicemails and calls and emails, they will basically say to Joe Biden, hey, my constituents are freaking running my phones off the hook. President Biden, like, we are at risk of losing the White House, the Senate, and having more MAGA people appointed to the Supreme Court. Mr. President, it is time to pass the torch and have the Blitz primary, and we don't want your legacy to be giving us 4 more years of Trump himself in a diminished mental state without any safeguards. Like, you're not going to have Mattis or Kelly or Gary Cohn. You don't have any of those people reining in Trump. It's going to be Donald and Stephen Miller and the Breitbart guy. It's not going to be fun, man. So I hope Joe Biden does the math and realizes that his legacy should be the legacy of, 1, beating Trump in 2020, and 2, helping us beat him again in 2024 by doing the most selfless, brave, magnanimous thing right up there with George Washington, which is the decision not to run. Bye, nerds. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Drake, please collab.